Morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this much requested session about corporate relationship building. My name is Jordan Lusink. I'm the Advocacy and Programs Manager here at ArtsFund. I use she, her pronouns, and for a visual description, I'm a white woman in her 30s with glasses and strawberry blonde hair, wearing a turquoise dress and a mustard yellow cardigan. I'd like to start today's convening by acknowledging that the city of Seattle, where ArtsFund is based, is on the occupied lands of the Coast Salish people, specifically the ancestral lands of the Duwamish, Stillaguamish, Muckleshoot, and Suquamish tribes, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. I would also like to acknowledge that many with us today are on different territories, and we join you in honoring and recognizing those as well. At today's event, we have a number of accessibility features, including Zoom-generated live captioning, which you can turn on and view the full transcript at any time. We also have ASL interpreters who we will be spotlighting. All presenters will be doing a visual description of themselves for those who benefit from it. And finally, today's session will be recorded and shared out later after the event. Before we jump in, I would like to thank the sponsors who are making our 2026 convening session series possible. Thanks to our presenting sponsor, Wells Fargo. And we'd also like to thank Columbia Bank Community Impact Fund and For Culture for their additional support. Now I'd like to welcome ArtsFund's President and CEO, Michael Greer, to set the stage for the program.
Good morning, everyone. Can we all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us today. My name is Michael Greer, and as Jordan mentioned, I'm President and CEO here at ArtsFund. I'm a light-skinned black male with no hair, wearing black chunky glasses, a blue sweater, and seated in front of an orange ArtsFund branded background. So ArtsFund was actually founded in 1969 as the Corporate Council for the Arts. And that name really reflects the impetus behind our formation. As Seattle was growing into what was, or what is now a major West Coast city, the corporate leaders of the day came together and really made it clear that in order for this to be a thriving and cosmopolitan city, we needed to not only have a strong business community, but also a really strong arts and culture community. And ArtsFund was born out of the corporate sector's acknowledgement that the arts are critical to a healthy and well-functioning community. And now you fast forward 57 years, and I think that that statement still holds true. Many of you have been asking for this session for years, and we are excited to be able to offer it today to reinforce some of our founding values and share the information about how to build and maintain these relationships in ways that are relevant and applicable to you in your day-to-day work. I want to thank Joy Stevens for her willingness to share her expertise with all of us. And I also wanted to thank the outgoing kitchen cabinet for helping us put this meeting together. The support of the corporate community is as important today as it has ever been. And I hope that the next 90 minutes or so gives you some practical and theoretical guidance on how to deepen your own relationships with that corporate community. So thank you all again for being a part of our community and for helping to uplift our mission, which is to support the arts through leadership, advocacy, and grant making in order to build a more healthy, equitable, and creative Washington. Thank you very much and enjoy the presentation.
Thanks so much, Michael. With that, I'd like to hand things over to Joy Stevens, the founder and CEO of Corporate Giving Network, to kick off our program.
Good morning, and thank you so much for allowing me to share information about the corporate giving. But before I get into that, I've got to describe myself. Well, I've got olive complexion, curly hair with platinum streaks in it. Some call it gray, mine are platinum. And I'm wearing a pink and black striped top with a black sweater over it. I think that's it. All right, so I am delighted to speak to you about corporate giving. It is one of those things that needs to be part of your fundraising ecosystem. And there's so many ways that individual giving, major donors, and galas and other things cross over. and one touches the other. So let me get into what I'm going to talk about today. And then I'll also give you an idea of how we're going to follow up on this topic the next time we get together, which I believe is April the 22nd. So today I'm going to begin by sharing my screen. And really, let's start with an overview, introductions, what is corporate giving, size and scope, trends and causes that companies support most. We need to talk about some terms and definitions because that is just part and parcel of working with businesses is that you do understand some of the business jargon that they may use. And then most importantly is your nonprofit organization ready for corporate giving? So that is the general agenda. Now, as far as introductions is concerned, just a little bit about me. I am the founder and CEO of the Corporate Giving Network. I have been doing this work for about 20 years, but in 2014, we started to specialize instead of being a generalist and doing all kinds of fundraising consulting. We focused strictly on corporate giving, and that happened in 2014. And we did it for two reasons. One, we felt that there was not a professional development group that really spoke to the fundraising professionals who were in charge of corporate giving, and that there was a need for professional development, for education, for networking. I mean, the work we do, and I'm going to say when I use the term we, that means I am putting on my corporate giving fundraising executive hat when I use that term we, is really very different from the work that our colleagues over on individual giving or in capital campaigns or in plan giving or all these other things, major donors. It's really a little different. And I believe that the skill set that we need to possess is also a little different. And so we're going to go over some of these differences. Now, having said all of that, there are certain similarities, of course. At the end of the day, we are both dealing with people. One group as an individual donor, they giving away their own money. They, whether it's buying a ticket, whether it's making a donation, whether it's coming to a gala, that's their money that they're spending. Whereas in corporate giving, the individual is not giving their money. They're giving the company's money. So that in and of itself creates some nuances that makes it a little different. Okay, so if you would like to rename yourself, and by that I mean, just your name and the name of your organization and where you're located. Why where you're located? Because sometimes I can tailor my conversation to if you're in a major metro market versus you're in a smaller, maybe rural market, or, maybe you're in Eastern Washington or something along those lines, because there are differences where depending upon where you're located and where your organization raises funds. Okay. I enjoy an interactive engagement more so than anything. There's nothing that kind of takes the vibe away when a speaker has to look at a bunch of black boxes. So if you feel comfortable and you can come off camera, that's awesome. I really would appreciate that. The other thing that does for me, if I say something and I take a look at the nonverbal communication, either you're smiling and going, oh, I like that, or you're frowning and going, no, that's not the way it is, then that also allows me to tailor my comments. Because maybe I say something and I look out and you're all kind of frowning, like, what are you talking about? Then I can maybe revisit it, or perhaps even someone wants to come off of mute. And if you don't mind me asking, somebody to share what they're thinking and feeling. This is also not, yeah, this is interactive. I'm not going to bore you with a whole bunch of slides, but I certainly want to impart information to you. So we'll go till about 10:50, and we're all on the same time zone. So that's good. 10:55 is a matter of fact. And then I believe 10:50, then we're going to have a break for 5 minutes, and then we'll pick it up. There will be time for Q&A. So write down your questions in chat or on a scrap of paper, because whatever you wish, and then we will open up the conversation for that. All right. The other thing that I want to bring up is thank you so much to all of you for adding information during registration about the questions you had. It gave me valuable knowledge as to the room. In other words, what are your primary concerns? And what I have discovered is that the number one issue that you have is getting your foot in the door. How do you find that person? How do you make contact with them? And I'll share all kinds of wonderful resources that'll help make that a little easier for you. So that was the number one issue. The next one is building that relationship from scratch. I also noticed some of you said, oh, I'm new to this. I'm just starting out in corporate giving. I have no idea where to start, and so on and so forth. Well, gosh, you're starting from scratch. So how do you build a relationship with a business when there's never been a relationship? And that is what you think now, that there hasn't been a relationship, but I'm happy to announce that there really is a relationship, but it's not perhaps as obvious as you think it is. And we'll talk more about that as well. Maybe not so much today, because today I want to give you an overview, but certainly the next time we get together. The third issue was, what do corporations really want? What is it that I have that they want? What do they value? And how do they measure ROI? Oh, great questions, by the way. You folks asked really wonderful questions. And I like this the bottom one is Jordan was saying, what, 255 registered, Jordan? So there
About
may
that,
be,
yeah.
yeah. So guess what? You're not the only person in your city or in your community that provides arts resources to the people who live in your community. So I'm going to use certain words that you might not like, and I just want you to understand the point of view from which I am using those words. I may use the word competition, and you just going to cringe. No, I don't have any competition. It's a peer, they're colleagues. We're all peers. We're all in this together. We all exist for the good of mankind. Yeah, all of that is true. But the way corporate America sees it is, yeah, you have competition because they get to choose. Which of these theaters do I support? Because chances are there's more than one. So remember, with corporate giving, these people who are the decision makers working for a business, they see things through a business lens. And the term competition is not an ugly word. It's just to describe an environment where there's more than one entity doing similar work. Okay. I will sometimes use the word sales. And here again, you might not like that word. And you go, no, it's not sales. It's all about relationships. Of course it is, but that's what sales is. Sales is relationship. It's a relationship with somebody who's who you trying to motivate to act in a certain way. And how are you trying to motivate that person to act? Well, you want them to support your museum as opposed to a museum in perhaps another community, another market, or even another interest area. Maybe you're the Museum of Cars and they want to go to the Natural History Museum. You get the idea. Okay, so I've said my bit about words that I will use, and that's kind of the jargon that I alluded to a little earlier on. Okay, so that's the point number 3. What is point number 4? It is sponsorship. And this question came primarily from small arts organizations where perhaps they feel that they don't get the same kind of attention, that their brand is not as big as perhaps an organization who is really large, has been around for a while. They've got lots of members, they've got a huge board, and so on and so forth. And these smaller organizations are thinking, boy, how do I get the attention? How do I get the sponsorships? Okay. And then the last major bucket was trends. Yes, the corporate giving landscape has changed. It changed significantly with the Big Beautiful Bill because of the new tax code. And it also changed with some executive orders that were issued that made some nonprofit entities lose some funding. And you cannot lose funding and not replace it. You know, one of two things happen. You either replace that funding or you can't provide the services that you've been providing. So, you know, plus you went through a really rough time during COVID. That was hard. Man, that was hard. And so thankfully, you've come out of it. We've come out of it. And we thought we were on a good trajectory. But then along came the Big Beautiful Bill and some executive orders that make the work that we do challenging again. So now let's get down into an overview. And what is corporate giving? What do I mean when I use that term? What does it mean when a corporate funder uses that term? And it's basically any support that you, the nonprofit, receive from a business, another nonprofit. I'll give you an example of what I mean by that, or a corporate foundation, which is a nonprofit as well. But we need to understand the sources of this, and without getting into what is this, an economic lesson or whatever, finance lesson or what have you, I kind of need you to understand how business, the term, the overall arching word business, what does that mean? Well, you've got the really big guys, the multinationals. And you know who all those are. You know, here in Seattle, you know, we've got the Starbucks, the Microsoft, we've got the Costco, we've got the Amazon, and so on and so on and so on. These are publicly traded organizations and they're on the stock exchange. You have visibility to their financials. They're a standalone entity. Corporate tax rules apply, particularly the tax rule where that 1%. Now, I don't know how I can do this, but you know, if you can raise your hand, and I don't know if I'll be able to see. Jordan, maybe you can see all the hands that are raised, but is there anybody in the crowd who does not understand what the 1% pre-tax charitable donation tax rules are? Are you all familiar? Ellen, you raising your hand because okay. So before the Big Beautiful Bill, a company could give you a charitable donation and they could deduct 100% of that off of their revenue, right? Thereby reducing their taxable revenue. And so because they're reducing their taxable revenue, there's have to pay less in taxes. So that was the before. When the Big Beautiful Bill was put into law, it became effective this year, 2026. The new tax rule says that with a C corporation, here we're talking about the big multinationals, the first 1% of their pre-tax revenue cannot be used as a deduction. We'll use real simple math. If my revenue before taxes is $100 and I give away $1 as a donation to a nonprofit, I cannot use that as a tax deduction because it's within the 1%. If I give away $2 to a charitable organization, I can only claim $1 because the first 1% I don't get to claim. So that's a very big change. And if you've already filed your income tax as an individual, there's something similar. We are at 0.5%. Okay. So we could talk a lot about this. And Jordan, please feel free to share my email and my information with the attendees. I'm happy to talk to you about it more later on. I don't have a problem sharing my time with you. All right. But I don't want to spend that time here because there may be folks who are knowledgeable about that. So let's get back to the presentation. So businesses, we talked about C corporations, a really big guy. Then there are other legal structures, S corporations, LLCs, partnerships, sole proprietor. So what we have a tendency to do is when we think of, oh, I'm going to get into corporate giving and I'm going to ask Microsoft for a grant because I know Microsoft supports the arts. Yeah, okay, Microsoft gives to ArtsFund, ArtsFund gives to you. All right, I understand that relationship, but I'm just using that as an example of you may be thinking about approaching a big C corporation to get grant funding. So, and we all tend to go after that, the big guys. And sometimes it's even your board saying to you, well, why don't you ask Microsoft or why don't you ask so-and-so? Because people think that these really big companies, yeah, they make so much money. They make hundreds of millions of dollars. Surely they're going to give some of that away. And yeah, they do. But, if everyone's asking, they only have so big a budget and only so much of it can go around. So remember that it's not just the big guys, but any business can give money away, whether it's your local barbershop or your dry cleaner, or it is the accounting firm down the road, or it is Molly Moon ice cream, and so on. These are all businesses, and they all have community impact leanings. Some lean more than others. For example, Molly Moon ice cream, extremely charitable. Molly has, and she's the founder, Molly has a very deep sense of giving back. And so that feeling that she has extends to her business, and therefore her business gives lots away. Okay, I said to you, funding comes from businesses. It also comes from nonprofits. Here's an example of a nonprofit, REI Cooperative Action Fund. It is a nonprofit. Corporate foundations. Let me tell you what a corporate foundation is. A company decides to give money away. It doesn't want to mingle its for-profit and its nonprofit actions. So what it does is it sets up a nonprofit, and the company gives money to this corporate foundation, which they have set up. And funding for that corporate foundation comes from the company and not from the public. And that is why it's called a private foundation. Now, if you're having all kinds of questions, that's okay. Put them in the chat. I'm happy to go back and revisit some of this. Let me give you an idea of the size of the scope. You've heard of Giving USA. Every year it publishes data on the generosity of American individuals and American businesses. They haven't published the 2025 numbers yet. That is coming out in June. Here are the 2024 numbers. $592.5 billion was given to the nonprofit sector in 2024. Look at this pie chart. 66% of it came from individuals. Only 7% came from corporate. But I want you to always remember something when you see this pie chart. That is not the entire picture. When a company sponsors your event, they give you money, they give you a sponsorship check, and in exchange for that, you give them benefits. That is not an example of a charitable donation because they got benefits. So that number, that sponsorship number, is not included in this 7%. Cause-related marketing, which we'll talk about in a minute, is not included in this number. An employer match, when your colleagues, or maybe this is the work that you do in individual giving, were smart enough to realize that, hey, let's not leave any money on the table and let's us ask the individual donor where they work and if their employer has an employee match. That employer match is in the 7%. The thing that I don't like about this slide is the fact that since 1983, that number hasn't moved much. Individual giving has, hasn't it? But you all know that because you've seen it and you know that. So there's been changes over time, but charitable donations from companies, it still only represents a small percentage of the total buy. But here again, it's not the full picture. What do these corporate foundations fund, and why am I showing this to you? Well, it is, knowledge is powerful, right? If you know, then you're better able to react and you're better able to plan. So when you look at corporate foundations, this is the causes and the percentage of the total funding that tends to go to each of these causes. And you'll see arts and culture is at 9%. And what is it that they support? Program is still out there. They still want to, give money to programs as general support. We try real hard to get them to understand that just give to general support. You are vetting these nonprofits before you give them anything. So they're doing a good job. You know that as far as accountability and transparency and impact, they're doing what they say they're doing. So just give them the general support. That is our goal in life. We'll keep fighting. And as far as population is concerned, economically disadvantaged. So how does this help you? Well, if you have, and I'm going to use the word program now, if you have a program that perhaps brings into the theater, brings into the museum, brings into, I should know all the answers to this, into the dance class and so on and so forth. I'm just looking at the listing, comes to your Seattle Latino Festival, comes to your South Asian Festival. If you open up the doors and allow economically disadvantaged people to be part of your organization, then you can see that if you are able to apply for a grant to have more of those folks come and enjoy the programming that you offer, that is the biggest number at 29%. Now, 2024 was a good year. And it was because the economy was good. Companies did really well in 2024. They made money. And there is a direct correlation between the profitability of companies and how much they give. 2025, there's been some challenges. 2026, even more. Okay, philanthropy. This is where you receive money and you're not expected to give anything in return. And you're going to go, yeah, but I have to give them the reports and da. Yeah, okay. But I'm saying you don't have to give them any outright benefits. Now, this could be cash. It could be goods in kind. Somebody could, there's all kinds of things. They could give you an asset. They can give you stock. They can give you crypto. They're going to give you a DAF. And that's another term that is part of our vocabulary these days that wasn't as often used earlier on, but now it is. Sponsorships. This is where it's different. All right. Sponsorships is a different thing. Sponsorships is more of a marketing decision. It is the company wants to see an ROI for the benefits, and they want to know what benefits they will receive. And sometimes this gets really tricky if you are somebody who does not work week in and week out with companies, with sponsors. It's maybe a little hard for you to understand, well, how do I show them an ROI? Well, I need a lot more time than that has been allotted to me. But just understand the difference between getting a grant, which is philanthropy, and getting a sponsorship, which is not. You have to give them something in return. Employee volunteerism, this is becoming a much bigger deal than it ever used to be. Because now when companies are allowing you to write a grant, and I say allowing you, why? Because the other trend that we're seeing is there's more by invitation only. I'm seeing it more and more, and there's reasons for that. And I can go into that once I've gone through this material, but there are reasons. So if you are smart about it, you will ensure that there is something that a group of employees can do at your arts organization. If you don't have some kind of volunteering opportunity, it's going to make things a little bit more difficult for you, because one of the questions that I've seen that I've never saw like maybe 10, 15 years ago, but now I see it often, is do you have a volunteering opportunity for our employees? Now, when we talk about employee volunteerism, the most impactful, in my opinion, is having a board member. And there's wonderful people out there who are ready, willing, and able to help serve on a board. And hopefully you've got a nice size board, and the board is diverse, and the board has a big business on it. It has small business on it. It has educated on it. It has people who have access to contacts. You want to have a diverse board. Yeah, it's great if you've got, racial diversity, cultural diversity. That all goes into making the board bigger and stronger. Teams love to get together, right? Because especially during COVID, or even now still, when you've got people who are working remotely, a company wants to know, gosh, how do I maintain the integrity of my team? How does my team network and work together? We'll have them do a volunteering opportunity at the nonprofit that we support. Workplace giving, I talked about this. That is where the employer will match the employee's gift. This is all part of corporate giving. And if you have some type of software, an app on your donate, that really will serve you well. It is estimated that we leave $4 to $7 billion on the table. What does that mean? That companies have allocated, okay, this is how many employees we have. This percentage gives. They give an average of this amount of money. So therefore we have to put this much money aside because we match it dollar for dollar. So companies have earmarked this money, but a couple of things happen. One, the employee forgets that that is a benefit that their employer offers, or they're not asked, or it's just really clunky for them to have to do that, so they don't want to bother. But this is an area of opportunity, cause marketing. This is an area that I feel is not used often enough. And how this is different is an activity happens, a sale occurs at a company, and the company gives a percentage of that sale to a nonprofit partner where they have a contractual legal agreement. You know, we go grocery shopping and we've been asked, do you want to round up? Whether it's grocery shopping face in person or whether we go to eBay and we buy a little something on eBay, they want to know if we want to round up. We've all seen it. There is a purchase trigger. What happens is you buy a Chobani raspberry and lemon Greek yogurt. A percentage of those sales goes to childhood hunger, and so on. The decision maker for cause marketing is definitely out in marketing. They're not in the foundation. So this is the other thing that gets to be a little tricky about cause marketing, right? Is, well, where do I go? Who do I talk to? And if I have decided who I'm going to talk to, how do I find out their email and their phone number? Jordan, how am I doing time-wise?
Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes until our
10
break.
minutes. Okay. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to present this, and then we're going to go back and we're going to speak about this some more after the break, because this is important for you to understand. This is material that we have put together based on surveying our corporate funders. So we maintain a database, a CRM, just like you do. We use HubSpot, and in a HubSpot, we have 800 contacts, and that those 800 contacts represent, we've got a lot more than that, by the way. We've got about 6,000 records in our database, but 800 of those contacts are corporate funders. So we know who they are, we know their email, we know their office phone, and we know their cell phone, and we also probably know a little bit about them personally, because we've built a relationship with these people over time. Because if the corporate giving network is going to help you find corporate donors, then we have to know who they are and where they are and what causes they support, how they support those causes. Do they or don't they do sponsorships? Tell you right now, Costco, don't waste your time. Costco, very generous, but they are very quiet brand, meaning they don't have to be out there advertising and showing off about all the good they do in the community. As a matter of fact, they're quite the opposite. They like to do a lot under the radar. But the thing about Costco is one of the things that they do not do is they don't do sponsorships. So if you've ever thought to ask Costco for a sponsorship, save yourself the time. The answer will be no. But let me talk to you about the importance of this list. This is how corporate funders vet their nonprofit partners. 99% of them want to know that you are a 501c3. They're not big on fiscal sponsorship. There's one organization that I know of in town, a significant organization, who will entertain fiscal sponsorships. But basically, they prefer it if you are 501c3, tax exempt status. They don't want to have to look for your mission statement, and they don't want to have to look for the difference you make. What is your impact? They will go to your website. And wow, when you're an arts organization, it makes it a little, how do you write up your impact? There are ways, but you want to be sure that it's there. The tax exempt status, we had talked about it. Do yourself a favor, just put your EIN number on the bottom of every page of your website and make it easy for corporate funders to find out information about you. Because if we make it too difficult, they'll just abandon and look for the next arts organization. First impression is very important. If you decide that you're going to send out an email, make sure that you personalize it as much as you can. You're spelling their name right. They can spot a form letter a mile away. Try not to do it. The other thing that you want to do when you're making a first impression, do not write pages and pages or paragraphs and paragraphs. Do not begin the sentence with, we were formed 75 years ago, and since then, da 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 da. And you give them their whole, they don't care. Nothing. No, I take that back. Of course they care. And the fact that you have been around for a long time is a good thing because that shows sustainability. But you don't need to write pages and pages about it. 2 paragraphs, that's it. They don't have the time. Here's the thing that is similar between the nonprofit sector and what is known as the corporate social responsibility, acronym CSR sector. They both very lean. Example, Expedia, huge company, right? We all know they are. They have 1.5 people giving money away, 1.5 for the whole world. Companies don't invest a lot of human resources in a department that gives money away. So there's a small department having to work with a massive number of nonprofits. So they don't have time to read a long story. Keep it short, keep it to the point. Digital presence, yes, the website, there's a lot to be said about that. Social media, you bet, especially if you're going after a sponsorship. They want to see how you have thanked other sponsors in the past. GuideStar, I would say in the high 90s. That's the first place they go to. 95, 96% of them will go to GuideStar and they will look at GuideStar. There are others they will look at as well, and there they are. But the one thing that I want you to do is, I'm going to give you homework. Oh no. I want you to go into GuideStar and I want to look up your organization. Do you have a platinum stamp? If not, make that a goal. Reputation. When you Google your organization, does anything come up? What about your Google review, your Yelp review? Are there any skeletons in the closet? Now, if something happened 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, know that if you know that it happened, A corporate funder will find it, very possibly. And that's okay. Just be prepared to discuss. Because you weren't there maybe 5, 7 years ago, something happened. You've come over it, you've put things in place where that can't happen again, and so on. Just know what reputation you have out in the marketplace. Your leadership, your staff, are they on the website? Is their bio on the website? Is it easy for the corporate funder to get in touch with you? Or do they have to hunt high and low to find your email or a phone number? Is your board on the website? Is it easy to find them? Your board is the most important body of people because they are ultimately responsible. They have the fiscal responsibility for your organization. A corporate funder wants to know who's on the board. What is their background? What kind of business acumen do they have? What kind of experience do they have? And so on. And then, of course, as I have mentioned earlier on, there is this need for them to understand or for them to know whether or not their employees can volunteer at your organization. Now, we've got 3 minutes before we take a break. And I'm going to go into the chat and let me just see. Oh my. Oh my, oh my, oh my. Now, are those questions you're asking in the chat, or is that just you networking with each other and saying hi to each other?
Hey, Joy, this is Katie
Yes,
from ArtsFund, and
yes.
there was somebody, Kay. I don't know if you would like to come off mute, but there was a question in the chat. Um, they said, if possible, would like to go back and talk about corporate sponsorship and what that ROI would look like.
Thank you.
Okay, it is not an easy conversation, Katie, but I will try to make it simple. What does an ROI look like? A company has a decision. They've got marketing dollars. Do I take an ad out in a local newspaper and 20,000 people will see it? Or do I invest with a nonprofit and for a similar amount of money, maybe more, because I will add on an altruistic piece onto that. And therefore, I will get the same number of eyeballs. Sponsorship valuation is not easy to do. And Jordan, I don't want this to sound like I'm trying to plug something that I do because I don't. But I just want to say that tomorrow we are talking about sponsorship at noon, and Bank of America will be there, Puget Sound Energy will be there, and the sponsorship lounge will be there. And we're going to be talking about things like how do you evaluate a benefit? And many, many other things. It's, we're calling it answering the tough questions.
Hello, this is Kay here. Will we be able to attend that seminar workshop?
Kay, let me talk to Jordan and the team. Maybe what I can do is give you a corporate or an organizational deep discount because it is a fee-based session. But Jordan, maybe I'd be happy to see what I can do for the group if folks want
Yeah,
to attend that.
yeah, we can connect on that and we'll
Okay.
follow up with y'all. At this point, I think we're going to take a 5-minute break. So we will reconvene at 10:55 and I'll put up a little countdown clock for y'all. See you in a few minutes. I'm going to hand things back over to Joy.
All right. Now, I have not, oh, my hand is raised. I have not had an opportunity to go through all of the questions in the chat. And so does anybody want to come off mute and ask their question based on the material that I have presented so far? Okay, Ellen yes, go ahead, Ellen, and then over to you, Kitty, I believe, if I did that right. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Alan.
All right. Oh, thank you.
Sure.
I'm a board member with the Kubota Garden Foundation, Kubota Gardens in the Rainier Beach neighborhood of Seattle, Washington. I wondered if there was any sort of a kind of a matching service that would match a nonprofit with likely corporate sponsors.
Ah, a service. Well, yes and no. The service, you can certainly hire a consultant to help you find corporate funders. That's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do is you can go to the local public library and you can access foundation directory online. And that's free, but you can't do it remotely. You actually have to be in the library. And foundation directory will tell you which corporate foundations will support the arts. Tell me again, Ellen, you were with whom? The Garden Foundation. Oh boy, right? Is that you?
Yes.
Kubota Garden Foundation. Oh, I'm a gardener. Oh my goodness. What a fun job you have. Okay. Yeah, and what the other thing that I have found is that excuse me. The other thing that I have found is that some organizations develop educational programming around their around the theater, whether it's a theater or whether symphony, choral, whatever the case might be. And so then you've got really two causes, education and the arts. But the best way there isn't really. Having said all of that, double the donation, which is the app that you attach to the donate button. That group is now starting to list companies that sponsor. So there's that, but it's kind of weak. There isn't something that does it. And I know that's not what you wanted to hear, and it's not a great answer, Ellen, but if I think of anything else, by all means, I'll certainly let you know because I have your info right here. Okay. Thank you. Kitty.
Hello.
Hi.
I work for 206 Zulu, and we're an organization that utilizes hip hop culture intergenerationally. And I'm really curious, thinking about that pie chart and individual giving, how we can get our Benevity page, like how do we get more people looking at it? How do we get more donations from that and corporate what did you call it? Like how the corporation that they work for will add an additional
Right.
donation.
Now, is your Benevity profile up to date?
Yep.
Do you have volunteering opportunities on there?
No, we do not.
Okay. So put your volunteering opportunities on there. The other thing is, what is your Candid is really, I can't emphasize that or not. What kind of seal do you have on Candid?
I am just hearing about Candid for the first time today.
Okay. So go to Candid because corporate funders love Candid. Okay. So take a look at what your profile looks like on Candid and go ahead and try to, update it so that you've got a platinum seal. Platinum seal says a lot about you. You've shared information, you have the financials on there, you've got the people who work at the organization on there. A lot of getting the attention of people is just really how it's marketing.
Yeah.
It really is. What are the kinds of things that you do to promote your brand? And one of the things that doesn't really cost you money, but it does costs you time, and whether it's you or whether it's the board chair or whether it is the executive director, is are you out there in the community talking to these service organizations? When was the last time you were the speaker at Rotary or Eagles or Lions or all these? You know, there are numerous organizations that have, in the case of Rotary, they have weekly meetings and they're always looking for speakers. I mean, gosh, they'd love to hear about the thing that you do. That's fun. And that's how you spread the brand.
Okay, thank you.
Let me know. I know people at Benevity, so, you know, let me know if you run into any questions or issues with that. Okay, now, please help me, Mr. Santos. How do you pronounce your first name?
Arceli.
Arceli. Okay,
Yes.
thank you, Arceli. And your question?
Not a question, but I'd like to share some idea about the ROI since you mentioned it.
Yes.
Yeah, so I used to work for a bank and I supported a local nonprofit. And so I have to justify to the management the amount of money that I'm requesting to be donated to that particular nonprofit. And it's on the terms of ROI. So I depended the ROI that they have this much number of members that since this is a bank, they're looking for new depositors. And I said they have multiple events wherein we can speak. They would allow us like to speak to the members so that they will get to know us as a local bank that services the area where their members live. And so that's the ROI that they're looking for. Like
Absolutely.
the potential number of new accounts that can be opened. And so that can easily like justify if I ask for $1,000, how many am I expecting like to get as a new depositors, and they have an equivalent amount per new deposit that comes in.
Yeah.
So if I say, let's say 500, okay, that's well over the $1,000. Okay, you can have your $1,000.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. That's a great example. And that shows you that the person giving the money away has somebody that they report to that they have to justify their decision. And that's exactly what this example demonstrates is I'm going to give this money away. What are we getting in exchange for it? Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions? All right, so let's go on now and talk about the other part of this, and that is where you find your prospects. And that really begins, just let me go ahead and share my screen. Just bear with me, let me pull this up. Okay. All right, I hope you can see what is now on. Let me just do, okay. So let's just give you an overview of how this all begins. If you are looking to get corporate donors, it really begins up here at O1, prospecting. How do you prospect? How do you know who to approach? The thing that you need to do is there needs to be an alignment. That's the first thing you have to take a look at when you're thinking of a company. So let me use Ellen's organization, all right? If I am Miracle Grow, if she wants, there is a very close alignment between the products that Miracle Grow sell and the people who are part of her garden foundation. Would you not agree that that makes a good alignment, Ellen? And that's really what you need to do is the prospect that you are going to reach out to are the supporters of your organization, the same target market. Now, let me just see. Is Jorge on? Did Jorge join us? Maybe not. But I mean, this is a very simplistic example. Jorge is with a Latino community. And I mean, he just needs to sit down and think about, okay, which businesses out there care about the Latino community? And there could be a whole bunch, anything from a food provider, manufacturer, all the way up to and including Safeway, QFC, Target, Walmart. All these people have to buy stuff somewhere. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that there is an alignment between your supporters, your members, and who you approach. I moved that a little too quickly. Once you have listed all the companies that you think would be interested, because there's the alignment, you have to figure out how you're going to get in touch with them, right? How do you find out who the person is and what their email is, what their phone number is? And that whole circle continues on all the way till you close the deal. Now, let's take a look at where what I call low-hanging fruit prospects are. It's internal. Your best new donors, corporate donors, are your existing and past. And even go back before COVID. Who supported your organization before COVID? Are they still in business? Have you been stewarding them along the way, or have you kind of gone dark on them? And that's understandable because you might not even have worked for the same company or the same organization before COVID, right? You could be new to the organization. Maybe you're only there for the last 2 to 3 years, but go back into the CRM and find out which companies have supported us. Go back 10 years, go back 15 years. Because one, they know you. They've already made a decision at some point that they like the work you do. They've already given you money. So that's the low-hanging fruit. Clients. Now, when I talk about clients, here I mean your members. Like, for example, if I buy, now is it called membership when it is, when I buy, say, to a theater, if I go to Fifth Avenue Theater, is it a membership that I buy, or what's the terminology?
Subscription?
Thank
Probably.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I knew
Yeah.
membership didn't sound quite right. Okay. All right. So, who's doing Jesus Christ Superstar?
It is the 5th.
Oh, okay. I knew that was top of mind. That is an excellent play. I love that. Gonna get my tickets. Okay. So here we go. I'm a subscriber to the Fifth Avenue. Is somebody from the Fifth actually on this call? No? Okay. So I'm a subscriber of the Fifth, and I am obviously in the database. When I talk about clients, I'm talking about your subscribers. I'm talking about somebody who's ever bought a ticket. They've come to your place, they've enjoyed the experience, they know you, they know you have good programming, they like the quality of what you offer. Now, You're going to go, wait a minute, that's individual giving. Yeah, but where do they work? The best way to make a contact with a company is to send them a little email. Hi, this is the Fifth Avenue Theater. Did you know that a quarter of all of our subscribers works for ABC Company? This is another trend I want to share with you. Companies are starting to look at what they're, more so than ever, they are starting to look at what causes their employees care about. And in some organizations, for example, AIG, I know they're headquartered back east, but their decisions, their employees make the decisions as to who they're going to fund. The company doesn't, their employees do. So if you are not capturing where somebody works, if you can try to change that somehow, talk to the person in database administration or this, or your ED, your CEO, managing director, whatever the title might be, and see if you can maybe do a better job of capturing where your people work. Because that is such a nice way to start a conversation with a potentially new corporate donor. And that is certainly low-hanging fruit. Your board, where do they work? Where do the people that's closest to them work? Their wife, their husband, their partner, their children, their grandchildren, and so on. And sort of the clients and the individual donors is sort of your staff. What do you do when you go home at the end of the day? What do you talk about? Right? You talk about work. Where does your partner or children or cousins or friends, best friend, brother, sister, where do they work? They know where you work because you talk about it, and you talk about it with such passion that you love what you do. That's low hang. And vendors, whether it's catering, whether it's the people that come in and do carpet cleaning, it's where do you get your IT and interconnection from? What about the phone service? What about the cell phone service? And so on. Somebody asked about where do I find corporate funders who support the arts? You may have heard of this little thing called AI. If you Google or use your Chat GPT or whatever device you want to use, here is a list of, and it's certainly not conclusive. It's not all of them, but here's an idea. Take a screenshot of this if you've got your phone handy. Instrumental is aiding grant writers. If you're a grant writer, you know about Instrumental. Kindsight, if that's another really great one. You put in a couple of you put in some information, you put in some criteria, and boom, it'll tell you which corporate funders, which foundations will support or does support the arts in your area. Now, the last one, how do you feel about that one? Anybody want to come off mute and share?
Hi, Joy.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
hi. My name
Ooh.
Stories as the Director of Operations and Movimiento Afro Latino Seattle as the Interim Executive Director. And I think sometimes we, in our peer spaces, get really into scarcity mindset. So when you ask, hey, how did you get this funded? There's a hesitation that happens. Like, ooh, should I share my people? Should I share my contacts? And for valid reasons, but it's hard to ask questions and or to answer, and then to think, oh no, my funding source
now they may or may not have the resources to fund me when I go back to them and ask again.
Yes. Thank you very much for that. And so this is something that I want you to get, I want to talk about this because your peer agency or your peer organization is a good place to find leads. And don't be afraid of that because one, you're going to do such a darn good job with your existing corporate funder. You're going to give them the reports that they want. You're going to ask them how often they want to hear from you. You're going to take them out for coffee periodically. You're going to share things with them that you know about them. Either they're gardeners, so you're going to let them know, hey, are you going to go down to the Northwest Flower and Garden Show this year? And so on and so forth. That's the relationship. You're going to steward that relationship. And because you do such a good job of stewarding that relationship and you give them everything that they need, they don't have a reason to not continue to support you year in and year out. Having said that, there are some companies that it's a one and done. Okay, you get the money this year. Next year, we're going to give it to ABC Theater. The year after that, we're going to give it to DEF Theater. The year after that, we're going to give it to HIG Theater. That's just the way some companies spread their money around. So sometimes it doesn't matter how well you steward that corporate donor. You're not going to keep it the next year. I know that because these corporate donors tell me how they fund. Okay, so that's the other thing. Another thing, if a company decides that they are going to support the arts, they have made that decision. They're going to support the arts. They are not going to necessarily give all of their arts budget to one entity. They will spread it around. Just as individuals give to 3 to 5 different nonprofits, corporate donors do the same thing. They give it to multiple. So don't feel that you are the only arts organization that's going to get the money from this company. No, other organizations are going to get it as well. So don't feel bad if you look at your peer agency and you go to one of their events, you go to one of their performances, you go and visit their garden, and you see that, oh, this garden was sponsored by Avon. Gee, maybe I should reach out to Avon and see if there's an alignment between what this garden does and what we do. But okay, so I hope I have done a good job of kind of explaining that. Jordan, you want me to stop at 10? So I've got 7 minutes, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I'm going to leave. Just let me talk about this. I am keeping my eye on the clock here. Now, prospecting. I mentioned the service clubs earlier on, and they are an awesome organizations. Now, the good thing about service clubs is you will find that, like for Rotary, Seattle 4, there is a Rotary here in town in Seattle, and it's called Seattle 4. And it's the 4th largest Rotary club in the world. It's huge. They've got a lot of people there. And you have wonderful, they have wonderful members. Okay. When Bill Gates Sr. was alive, he was there and he attended regularly. and so on. And they meet weekly, and you get a chance to actually meet these people. And having a face-to-face meeting with somebody is powerful because you can hand them your card, you can shake their hand. There's a face that goes with an organization, and that's a really great way to get this whole cycle started. The other thing too is professional organizations. For every type of work, pretty well, there is a professional organization, whether somebody is an accountant, whether they're a banker, whether they're electrical engineer, whether they're a photographer, whether they're a journalist, you get the idea. They belong to a professional organization. Some of you belong to AFP. It's a professional organization. These professional organizations have money that they give away. They have grant money. There's giving circles, and so on and so forth. There's all kinds of places where you can find funders. I like the bottom one as well. Is the Puget Sound Business Journal is doing, and I'm going to stop sharing. The Puget Sound Business Journal, every year, they do a corporate citizenship luncheon. And this year it happens on the 12th of May. And why do I put that on my calendar every year? Because that's where the corporate funders go, because they are being recognized for the good work that they are doing out in the community. That's where Jane Broom is going to be. That's where Karen Bergen is going to be. If you don't know those two names, those are individuals who work for Microsoft. I go every year, and without fail, I've bumped into them and said hi. That also keeps my relationship with them fresh. So, you know, another great place to prospect is to go where the corporate funders are. And that is a great place for you to meet them. The other place, and Jordan, I'm taking a little bit of liberty here, is every second Thursday of the month, we invite a corporate funder to join us. And next month, I've invited Allstate Insurance, the month after that, Walmart, the month after that, Nordstrom, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. All that kind of stuff is on our website, but that's another idea of where you can meet corporate funders, because you can make the decision like, hey, I'm going to approach Nordstrom because the kind of people that come to the opera are the kind of people that Nordstrom sells to. So therefore there's an alignment. So now I got to get in front of the decision maker of Nordstrom to let her know that I firmly believe that they need to support us because there is this alignment. So we'll leave it at that for now. And questions? Kim?
Hi, thank you for an excellent talk. I am learning a lot and reconfirming a lot. So thank you. Would this deck be available for us to review, or how would that be sent?
Jordan, do you want to answer that question, please?
Yeah, we'll be sending a follow-up email to everyone who's registered, and that will include a recording of today's session as well as the presentation. And we can also include information about the session tomorrow that Joy mentioned.
Can I ask one follow-up question, which is, as a nonprofit, sometimes we invite funders or supporters in to see our programming, and I think sometimes there's a hesitation about tickets, which could be deemed as a conflict of interest. Do you have any time to talk about that?
Yeah, what do you mean? How is it a conflict of interest, Kim?
I think they sometimes feel that it might be a gift. I haven't encountered this too often, but sometimes, yeah, one of the best ways to see us, Meany Center for
Yes.
the Performing Arts, is to come to a performing arts event, and that means a ticket or an assigned seat. So have you encountered any companies that feel this is a conflict?
Okay, the only time that could be a conflict is if the person cannot take anything for free. Let me give you an example of what I mean. On last Thursday, I took Nordstrom, Boeing, Starbucks, Seattle Foundation. I'm missing one. Who was the fifth? Anywho, I took these 5 corporate funders out for lunch. And why did I do that? Because I wanted to thank them for speaking at our conference that we held in March. And this was, I took them to the Columbia Tower Club. I took them for a nice lunch, and it was going to be on me. And it was Target. That's the other one. Whew, thank you. Target couldn't allow me to pay for her lunch. She said, nope, I can't allow you to buy me lunch. I have to pay for it. So yes, I see your point. Sometimes there could be that. And in the case of the others, there's no reason why they wouldn't accept a complimentary ticket and come out and see it. And in the case of Target, Lydia would come, but she would pay for a ticket. And don't feel bad that she insists on paying for a ticket, because that's just the company policy. Okay,
All right.
Curti.
I think we actually, unfortunately, don't have time for
Oh,
another question. But Kurti, if you want to put it in the chat or send it to me, we can see if we can answer that offline. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today for today's session, and thank you to Joy for taking the time. We will follow up with everyone with a link to the recording and the presentation and some more information about the session tomorrow that Joy mentioned, so keep an eye out for those. If you haven't already, don't forget to sign up for the companion session for today's learnings, which will be a panel discussion with Joy, Sarah Bednar, who's the Institutional Partnerships Director at Seattle Rep, Sarah Michael, who is the Director of Institutional Giving at the Seattle Art Museum, and Randy Choi, Vice President of Philanthropy Programs at Columbia Bank, to represent the funder's perspective. You can register for that. That is happening on Wednesday, April 22nd from 10 to 11. And I just put a link to register for that in the chat, and we'll include it in the follow-up email as well. If you're interested in continuing the conversation online among peers, please join us on the Cultural Partners Connect Slack channel, where we'll be talking about takeaways and further curiosities following today's session. If you're not already part of that Slack channel, you can find more information at the link that my colleague Nanika put in the chat. Thank you. And we'd like to say a final thank you to our sponsors, Wells Fargo, Columbia Bank Community Impact Fund, and For Culture. Finally, when you close out of our Zoom meeting, there will be a brief survey that pops up. Please take a couple of minutes to complete it. It's anonymous, and it really helps us plan events and trainings that will be most valuable to the community. And with that, thanks again to you all, and have a great day.
Hey,
Bye.
Jordan,
Yeah. Yes.
is it possible for you to send me the chat? Because if there's questions in there,
Yes.
I'm happy to answer them.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
thanks, everyone.
I appreciate
Bye.
your participation.
Thank you so
See you
much.
next time. Bye-bye.